Okay, so I think we can begin now. I'm just going to record quickly. There we go. Started. Okay, firstly, just mind my voice. I'm just recovering from the flu and trying to get my voice back. Today's session is not going to be long. I am going over the national support session, just sort of feedback from what I've seen whilst grading your assignment 1. Then we're going to go over your assignment 2 PACER and possibly just assignment 2 so that I can guide you a little bit more in terms of how much to write, in terms of the theory versus the application, because that's where I saw a little bit of a gap when I was grading your assignment 1. But I'm going to start now. So far, we've covered everything from Learning Unit 1 to Learning Unit 4, which is what is also covered in your assignment 2, which is great. In our next pre-recorded session next week, I'm going to start Learning Unit 5. And then please just shout if you want to do the next live lecture, which is 2 weeks from now, where we focus predominantly on the assignment. Even if I get a thumbs up so I know where we headed towards, because we do have sort of 2 national support sessions that I've now got in the PACER. So I'm using today as one, and then I can use another session for 2 weeks from now where we're going over everything. Sort of I'm just revisiting Learning Unit 1 to Learning Unit 4, but focusing primarily on the assignment so I can help you guys at least get to build your grades up. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up, so let's rather do that. Let me share my screen for now. Okay. So basically, this is our national support session. And just some basic reminders, okay? Number 1 is the due date of the assignment. There was a few students that submitted within 24 hours. You get a 15% deduction. And if it's over 24 hours past the due date, you get 0. So please keep this in mind. We want to make sure you push as much marks as possible for your CAS, so that you at least have a high percentage going into your examination. So make sure that you are focusing on your due dates. You're submitting it via ARC and not via email, okay, which I've seen everybody submit via ARC, which is great. You need to consistently work towards the assignment. Don't procrastinate. Don't leave it for the night before or the night off that it's due. On average, it should take at least 10 hours to complete the assignment. So you need to be looking at both your theory as well as your case study so you can apply, as well as try and get external sources and examples to explain your point even further. So like, for instance, if you're looking at a just-in-time option, then you want to look at a company that's predominantly using just-in-time. For assignment 2, a lot of the focus is on quality. So total quality management, which company is focusing on total quality management, like Toyota, for instance. So try and bring in those sort of examples and use external resources to tie in where your essay is coming into play. Okay. If anything at all goes wrong with your submission, take a screenshot, send it to Student VC Assist, and always let me know. Send me a WhatsApp message or drop me an email, but always let me know so I know when I am grading, I need to be aware that you've had a technical difficulty. VC Assist has given you permission to, submit it 2 or 3 hours later. So I know when I'm grading, I'm not doing any sort of deductions. So take that into account. The next one is referencing guide. I have seen a lot of assignments in this assignment 1 where students didn't do in-text referencing. When you don't do in-text referencing, it sort of calls for a minor fault. So you end up getting a 5% deduction. If you don't have in-text referencing, your in-text referencing is not done correctly, your plagiarism or your Turnitin is quite high, you end up going into -10 deduction. So If you are unsure of how to reference, go and visit the referencing guideline. IIE referencing guideline more specifically is very similar to Harvard referencing guideline. So use those as examples of how to reference correctly. And referencing or in-text referencing needs to come into play where you are making a statement that's not yours. You're putting something that's theoretically driven. You need to have the referencing of the textbook in that in-text referencing. So if you're putting your own opinion there, different situation, but if you are saying something that somebody else, where you've gotten a quote from somewhere, or you've gotten information from a specific journal or a specific textbook, that needs to be in-text referenced. Okay. Additional information away from the module outline is very important. So this also comes into play where you're using external sources, not just using information from the textbook. Okay. Submit in PDF. I didn't see anybody submitting in Word document, but I've seen it in my other classes. So just bear in mind, everything needs to be submitted in PDF. And please double check when you are submitting. You do have multiple chances to submit on ARC. I take the most latest submission. So please make sure that you are double checking. There were some students that had submitted incorrect assignments, incorrect work. So make sure that you are going in and you are double checking your work. You're double checking your format. There were some cases where there was an entire blank page in the middle of the assignment. So make sure that you are checking it, because structure and look of your presentation of your assignment is also very important. As much as you're not graded for it, it gives you pride that you submitted something, that's quite well presented. Okay, and then no photo conversion. Even if you're putting in an illustration, copy and paste the illustration. Don't put it in as a photo conversion. Okay, is there any questions so far? Okay. Okay, so key areas for improvement. Read the question and understand this clearly. Bring in theory as well as apply to the relevant case study and make sure you're referencing it accordingly. What I also saw is that students weren't looking at the marking guideline or the rubric. Make sure you look at that. When I look at the assignment now, I'll give you more of an idea of what we look for when we are grading, so you have a better understanding. Structure of your assignment, make sure you have a cover page, a contents page, your grammar's done correctly, you have good sentence construction, and you have a closing paragraph, especially when it comes to your essay, your final essay. Make sure you always have an introduction as well as a conclusion for your final essay. And then external research, so using other sources that is outside of your textbook. Okay. So just from a preparation perspective, read your learning units and contextualize the information to the case study. So the PACER helps you, which I'll present after this national support session. So the PACER helps because you're able to see exactly where that content is sitting in your textbook, be it a learning unit, be it a specific theme, or be it in a specific chapter in your textbook. Look out for keywords in your question for theoretical knowledge. A lot of times your keywords are bolded or highlighted in your question paper. That's what you need to answer around. So look out for that. So also pace yourself when you're preparing for your assignment. Know how many questions and the amount of time you need to answer. Don't procrastinate and leave everything for last minute. Your rubrics, also very important. It is a clear guideline provided on your question paper on how marks are allocated. For instance, if you have a question that's worth 15 marks and they ask you to explain 3 types of, or let's say 3 characteristics of total quality management, you now have basically only 3 points and 15 marks. Most times, 5 marks is allocated per point. 2 marks is theoretics for the 1 point, and 3 marks is your application for that 1 point. So make sure you are providing enough information. Also, don't say the same thing multiple times. just so that you make your assignment look full. Make sure you are bringing in new points, and we can then you can then discuss it in that specific question that needs to be answered. Unpack the question into identify, discuss, explain, so you provide sufficient context. So if they're asking you in the question, explain a specific point, you need to now explain it. Don't just list items. Use the assignment template, which I was very glad about, that majority of everybody had used the assignment template, which is great. And then most importantly, the marking guideline. You can see the repetition when I'm speaking about marking guideline, because 99.9% of you were on the right track. It was just you weren't explaining it fully. You had the correct answer there, but you just weren't explaining it to full capacity and getting that full marks in. Okay. Is there any further questions or any questions at all? Okay. Let me share the page.
Sorry, hi, ma'am.
Yes.
How are you?
Good, and you?
I'm good, thank you. I have a question with regards to the structure of the essay, right?
Okay.
So obviously there's an introduction, the body, and the conclusion. So I want to ask in terms of the body. Let's say that the question is like a list. I don't know like the exact question, but maybe you have to list specific things of that topic, right? So with the body, can you like do it in bullet points, or is that wrong?
I don't mind if your heading is in a bullet point. So let's say, for instance, they tell you to list and explain 5 points in total quality management, okay? Your 5 points can be listed in bullet points, but your explanation needs to be in a paragraph and not just in bullet points, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay, I do get it
Okay.
now. Okay.
So
Yes,
you'll
ma'am.
have 5 bullet points in your body for your 5 list for, let's say, total quality management. And then under your bullet points, you're going to have your full explanation. That's not going to be in bullet points. The aim of an essay is that it needs to be general writing. Your bullet point helps you to structure your essay. So your 5 points that you're listing is going to help you to structure it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, no problem. Okay. Then we're going to go over assignment 2 specifically. And this is what your pacer basically looks like. So I went into assignment 2. I went into each and every question to understand where each question is sitting in terms of your learning unit, your theme, as well as in which chapter. Okay, so question 1.1, sitting in learning unit 1, theme 1 and 3, and it's part of chapter 1. 1.2, learning unit 1, theme 1, chapter 1. So you can see from 1.1 all the way down to question 4, you've only got up until 4 learning units, and you've got up until chapter 6. So that's where your focus needs to be on. So if you're going into learning unit 5 and 6 and chapters 7 and 8, you're basically not on the right track. So just make sure that you are looking at the pacer, because the pacer is only going to guide you. Okay, so you have a total of 4 questions, so broken down into 1.1, 1.2, 2.1 to 2.3, 3.1, 3.2, and then question 4, and a total of 100 marks. Your question 4 primarily is where your essay is sitting in. Okay, I'm not going to go over every learning unit right here now, but just to give you an understanding, this is what the pacer is. Use this pacer. Don't try and reinvent the wheel when it's already done for you. Use the pacer to go and find your information. Use that information in your assignment. Okay. Any questions? Yes, Lee.
Hi, Nerissa.
Hello.
So, just to touch again with the essay, let's say I'm doing the essay and I did my introduction and I gave the heading now introduction. I'm just looking for something in the textbook. Let's say it's a point form. Just give me a second.
Sure.
Okay, I'm trying to think of something. Okay, here is the value chain activities. Let's say you needed to do an essay on the value chain activities.
Mm-hmm.
And now I gave an introduction. Now here is 5 points. Can I put, so in the body I'm gonna discuss it. Can I put a heading production and then explain it at the bottom?
Yes, yes, you may.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
you don't have to just start off with like what production is. You can have your heading as production, and you can then do your explanation on what production is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure, no problem. Okay, then I'm just going to run over the assignment very quickly. Okay, just so we all covered. All right. Um, in detail, we will go through it in 2 weeks from now. Just obviously, I'm not here to give you the answers, but I'm here to just touch base again. Sort of, let's call it a revision class. So it'll be a revision class for the assignment 2. Okay. So once again, minor errors 5%, major errors 10%. There was a few deductions, so please make sure that you are doing this correctly. Students are required to do research beyond the scope of the prescribed textbook. So whether it's using a library website, using the Google Scholar, whatever it is, any sort of additional notes, you can use that. All right. Just make sure that you are referencing it though correctly. Um, all all answers must be referenced according to IIE Harvard referencing method, and be sure to provide original examples where indicated in the questions. Thus, examples not taken from the prescribed textbook. Your lecture will not mark beyond the maximum word count for questions where a limit is specified. Also, another point, when there is a limit being specified, make sure that you total that in your Word document and you put down the number of words that you have for that specific question or essay, because it's difficult for me to total it on ARC, just so that I know where you're sitting at from an essay perspective. Okay, this is your case study. I'm not going to read through this. This is for you to go through and understand, break it down. Highlight the points that you need, understand this case study back and forth. Even if it's the smallest part of information, it has a place somewhere. So make sure that you go through this. Okay. So for instance, question 1, information sourcing, inventory are key concepts in supply chain for Brightech. Explain how information sourcing and inventory would function as supply chain drivers for Brightech. Explain each driver in the context of Brightech. Here you can see 15 marks. So whether the function or your supply chain drivers, let's say for instance you have 5, then you're going to have basically 3 marks per driver. 1 mark will be theory, 2 marks will be application. The tip here is that you're explaining each driver in the context of Brightech. Make sure you still give a definition of what the theory is first, then follow with how it's related to Brightech specifically. Okay. Brightech, let's say, is launching a plan to improve its processes, restore its brand reputation, considering logistics a key element, explain the concepts of logistics. This is for 5 marks. At least give me 5 points, 5 neutral points that will explain, what logistics is in context of the supply chain process for Brightech. Okay, so just make sure you follow this. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just going over sort of the marking scheme, because this is where I felt as though was one of the key areas for improvement of how you can score better. As I said, most of all of you were on the right track in terms of where you got your content from. It was just you didn't have enough content, and you'd see that from your comments. Okay. Brightech has been contemplating international purchasing to mitigate the quality issues they've been experiencing. Conduct additional research. Okay, this means that you have to go outside of your textbook. Discuss 2 risks that Brightech may experience if they go ahead with the course of action. This is for 10 marks. 2 risks in total, 5 marks per risk. 2 marks for the theory of the risk, 3 marks for the application to Brightech, and sort of what would the experience would be if they had to go through this. Okay. Then here, 2.2, discuss the legislative framework of local production and content and how it relates to Brightech. Here you can see they've given you a rubric. 6 marks for theory, 4 marks for application. Okay. Similarly here, one of the pillars of procurement that exists in South Africa is open and effective communication. Discuss the pillar and how it affects Help Together and Brightech. Same story. Rubric provided, 6 marks theory, 4 marks application. Question 3 for 20 marks, 3.1 for 5 marks. Conduct research beyond your prescribed textbook. Very important. So I will look for a reference that does not say Mbaje, basically, and explain what quality is in the context of Brightech. A direct quote will not be marked, so don't put anything in inverted commas. You will be rewriting it and explaining it to me in your way. A reference from a credible source other than your prescribed textbook, and this is for 5 marks, so I need sufficient information. Okay. Explain 3 principles that Brightech would need to be aware of to ensure that they design a meaningful quality assurance process. You see how your keywords are being highlighted in bold? Provide an example related to Brightech for each principle. So 9 marks for theory, 6 marks for examples. So it will be 3 marks each for each principle and 2 marks each for examples of each. You can make assumptions if you need to, but it needs to be backed up with referencing and evidence. And then the last question on total quality management, explain what the total quality management system is and why it would be beneficial for Brightech to implement such a system. Unpack the definition, very important, the principles of total quality management, and the benefit of the total quality management. So you need to have an intro, the body, and a conclusion, clear and relevant examples. Use outside examples if you need to. Reference it accordingly and use a rubric. So looking at the rubric, the structure of your essay and clarity of writing, you need a correct essay structure. So a good intro, a good body, and a good conclusion scores you 3 marks. Your content for 5 marks is what is the definition or the explanation of TQM and how is it relevant to the company Brightech. The second part is the main characteristics and how it would apply to Brightech for 10 marks. Maybe there's 10 characteristics. Remember as well, this is your ICE task. So it's going to help you. The drivers of TQM, 5 of those, and the benefit to Brightech should they adopt TQM. So 5 marks for that. And then overall, how comprehensive was your answer? How much of depth did you have? Was your ideas quite original, or was it something that was just taken out of a textbook? So this is how you would mark. You'll see, especially when you look at your rubric for assignment 1 and the way I marked it, if you scored quite well in your content, you scored quite well in your argument and your structure, because it meant that everything was flowing and everything was done correctly. But if you didn't score well in your content, it means that nothing was sort of working out, and you were going from A to Z to B to Y, you were jumping from pillar to post. So there needs to be an absolute flow of how your essay is being written. Okay, is there any questions?
Hi, Nerissa.
Yes, Lee.
So, with regards to this essay, I see it's similar to the I task case.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the main characteristics of TQM, right? If I look in the textbook, there isn't a lot, but now obviously there is, like, let's say the drivers of TQM that maybe mention something. Does that count as characteristics?
No. So you would have to look at external sources as well to drive your characteristics. Remember, what is total quality management? It's making sure that your product is of high quality so people buy your product. So what is one of your first characteristics is customer focus, for instance. You want to focus on what your customer wants to see and the quality that they want in order for you to have full total quality management. So these are some of the characteristics. It might be an absolute simple characteristic that you wouldn't think sort of existed, but I would urge you to look at external sources to understand where your characteristics are sitting. Remember, it is for 10 marks. So you want to be able to at least give me 5 characteristics in order for you to get, your full and final total mark.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other questions? Okay. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to basically close off class here now because we just went through our national support session. Next week, I'm going to do your recording on Learning Unit 5, which obviously doesn't correspond to your assignment, but it would correspond towards your examination. The following week after that, which is, let me get the date for you quickly, the 30th of April, we will be doing a full-on session on the different questions in the assignment. And I'm just going to go over those learning units again, just so that it's fresh in your head. So when you are doing your assignment, it's going to contribute towards it. Okay. Because we obviously need to build up everyone's results as quickly as possible. The ICE task, you will see that I did change the dates to the 30th of May, and I'll give you an explanation for that. The actual date that you have in your PACER, so for instance, ICE task 3 due on the 16th of April, those are soft due dates. I would urge you to do it by the soft due date, but if you cannot do it, you do have a full and final date. I put 30th of May because it's basically the last week of lectures or live lectures. However, it may even be sooner than that, but I will give you at least 5 days notice. So if you have not done your ICE task, you do have 5 days basically to have it done. All right. I'm just being a little bit more lenient so that you have more time to basically work with your assignment. So yeah, submit your ICE task today if you have it ready, or submit it next week, or submit it at the beginning of May. But when I do get a final date that CAS is due on the system, I will give you at least 5 days notice so you have your CAS up, your ICE task loaded there. Okay. I just want to go through to any sort of questions. Is there a maximum amount of times we can submit? No, you can submit however many times you want. I take the most recent submission. So for instance, if you're submitting first time and you're getting a 40% turn it in, you do have an opportunity to go and change your assignment so that you have a lower turn it in plagiarism percentage. Okay. Someone answered that as well. You are right, there wasn't a specific rubric for each question like assignment 2 had for assignment 1. However, there is a marking guideline. For instance, they're telling you question 1.1 was worth 10 marks. You can then understand if they're telling you to list 3, you are dividing that by, or let's say it's what, 9 marks, you're dividing that by 3, that's giving you 3 marks per question or 3 marks per listing. So you need to understand what the marking guideline is per question in order for you to write. Okay. Okay, we found out where every person has feedback. Some feedback might be grouped because I did see a common error from 1.1 to 3.3, but some questions are sort of specific. Yeah, but basically today's session, I just covered sort of general feedback so you have an understanding of where you basically went wrong. Okay, is there any other questions before we close off today?
Ma'am, I also have another question.
Yes.
Can you please at least like make an example for like assignment 1 on 3.3 on how to like apply where it says application, because application is like 12 marks, right? So
Yes.
just like maybe do like an example on how to apply it to the question in terms of like Tech Nova.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. So what we'll do is in our session on in 2 weeks' time, I will start off with that. I will start off with the maybe 3.3 and I'll do the essay question for Technova so you can see how the application is being done. So I'll do the full sort of marking guideline of how I would mark it and what I look for, just so that you have an understanding of how to then do or attack your assignment 2. Is that fine?
Okay, ma'am, that's fine. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, if there's no other questions, all right. Thank you so much. I will chat to you guys on the 30th, but next week you'll have your Learning Unit 5 recording. Have a lovely evening. Thank you.